So, yeah, so I think we always do that as an icebreaker because as an entrepreneur, you need to consistently, I think there's a couple of things that you need to do. You need to sort of align or outline what the pitch is, and I think some of the most important things, I think some of the most important things that you need to always consider in the pitch, it's never the product, it's always the story. It's never the product, it's always the story. If I sell the product, especially from an opening pitch, and I've got 60 seconds to sell it, I must sell the effects and benefits of what this thing then does. And then over and above it, you need to consistently sort of fine-tune the pitch so that you align the pitch in the right way. And then the third thing that you must always consider is that you must have multiple pitches because of who you're going to pitch. So it's like if I'm going to talk to a fund manager, I must have my conversation. Maybe I need to be able to talk about numbers. I need to be able to talk about where we're hitting and how we're doing, because if I talk about the fluffy things, maybe I'm irritating him and it's a nuisance. It feels good, but it doesn't mean anything. But maybe if I'm talking to a CMO, I talk to a different angle. Maybe if I talk to the lady or the head of HR, maybe I speak about it from a different perspective. So being very cognizant of who you're speaking to becomes very important, because you almost then will need to consistently fine-tune your pitch to whomever you're speaking to at the end of the day, because you're selling different things. But as an entrepreneur, sales is at the heart and at the lifeline of your business, because if you're not selling, then you're not in business. It's a hobby that you have. But if you're selling, but if you want to really grow your business, you need to be selling, consistently selling. And I think when you sort of just basically, and I'll open up for our first speaker, I'm not even a speaker, but you then need to then also clearly funnel out the pipeline, your sales pipeline. You need to be very clear about your sales pipeline, right? And then you also then need to then study and go back and ask yourself, for me to have gotten this gentleman as a client and is wearing my suit jacket, how long did it take me to convert him? When you sort of utilize that as a base model methodology for conversion, then you'd be very clear that if it takes me 3 weeks to convert one gentleman and it gives me in 30,000, and my goal is to bring in 500,000, then chances are then I might need to then speak to 30 or 40 individuals within a 30-day space for me to at least have a pipeline or a pool big enough of mixed with no's and yeses that might get me to my goal of 500,000 Rand. So being very cognizant of that is important, but also the other side of it is also then understanding one thing, to say, you need to have a sale that latches onto another sale. What I simply mean by that is sometimes you drop your costing, sometimes you break your operational your operational products and how you produce and how you sell them, to say, I'm going to give you just this once. But I'm going to give you just this one so that it latches onto another sale. So simply put, I'm going to give you this product if you can guarantee that you will introduce me to this gentleman and this gentleman. Because most of the time we are not doing that. And then we are constantly selling a miss, and we're not hitting the bottom line. But for us to then hit the bottom line, then you need to then consistently have that at the backdrop of you selling. Because sometimes you then sit there and you're like, yo, but these clients are not coming quick enough. But you haven't taken the time to study the value chain, or where you are in the value chain. What are the economic drivers that drive people coming to buy from you? Because if you clearly understand that, you would also then understand that there's no need for me to potentially even work on a Monday, because no one's going to buy from me on a Monday. That industry doesn't operate or work on a Monday. So you're actually kissing in the dark if you're trying to do stuff without clear understanding. So doing stuff with very clear understanding becomes very important. And I think just most importantly, which is why I love our first speaker, right, who's gonna kick it off with compliance. This then becomes at the heart of growth, because entrepreneurs have got big hearts, we've got big stories, we want to do these big things, and then we fail at, send us your tax clearance, dololo. Send us your letter of good standing. Send us basic stuff, because that's the stuff that you always need to have on your cell phone, on Google Documents or OneDrive. That's stuff that you're always going to need to have on a laptop, so that when an opportunity opens up and they say, listen, it just opened up now, send us the document, we'll deal with the nuts and bolts later on, you're able to plug yourself in. But that's where we sort of miss, because we've got the big passion, we've got the big drive, we've got the big amazing stories. You know that people will really sell this, but that's a differential conversation. That's an emotional conversation. When we start talking we're not going to give you funding or grant funding or technical support, the real big question is, what do the numbers look like? Because the numbers will tell us a bigger story. What I've always said to entrepreneurs is, you take care of the finances. Just manage them as best as you potentially can. If you have an accountant, you have an accountant friend, ask them as many questions as you possibly can. Because the best pitch that will never lie, I can always lie, I can stand here and lie, but the one pitch that will never lie are management, accounts, and financials. Because I always said, when you study your financials will tell you what you need to sell more of, what you need to sell less of, where your pain points are, what you actually need to go back and optimize your cost, which suppliers you need to talk to and try and optimize your financial cost, where you need to then sort of drop those costs so that you can align your business in the right way. Maybe our branding is not doing the way that it's supposed to, because if it did, maybe it could have been contributing to the sales. But we sort of negate that and are looking at all the other things, and then our conversation is, I'm not a finance person, admin is not my thing. But if that's the mindset, then you're then going to consistently chase your tail. Because part of starting your business and growing your business is so that you can work yourself out of the business. And the sad thing is that if we are not managing our compliance, if we're not positioning ourselves in the right sort of sense to grow financially, whether be it for an angel investor, whether to actually build it to sell it or build it to scale and grow it, and we need to have the right sort of documents, then you find ourselves not even being entrepreneurs but full-time employed, and then end up falling into depression and stress and frustration because the business you wanted to work is actually now working you. So that's a fine opener for this amazing young man, Yusuf. Let's give him a round of applause. This is Yusuf Mahomedy, who's just going to open up for us and engage us on compliance. The floor is yours. And then just one thing. So we're disappointed by our display screen supplier. So we've got that one screen which is there at the back. So you might need to, I think, apart from listening to this compliance conversation, just do a bit of exercising. You know, I know you guys don't exercise. This is the best time to not exercise. But if you've got neck problems, it's not our bill.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I am absolutely so excited to be here to talk to you today about compliance and financial statements. And let's be honest, this is not the most exciting part of your business. Most of us, when we think about it, it's like, oh no. I'm here to change that. And I guarantee you, within the next half an hour, you will come away feeling different about a topic that you might have been exposed to many times in your life. So let me start off with something else. Who wants to have a business that makes a lot of money? Raise a hand. Okay. Who wants to have all those nice things that we don't have? Maybe it's a fancy home. Maybe it's kids in a private school with the dog that you can walk on the streets. Maybe it's endless holidays while and knowing that your business takes care of itself. How many of us have that somewhere, you know, at the back of our mind, it would be nice, Now, if that's something that you really want, and you feel really connected, that you think, you know, you want the good life, you know, because you've worked so hard, you know, and you always seem to be doing so many stuff, you're hustling, doing all that, and you feel it's time for the good life, right? Then this is where we're going to start. We're going to start with compliance. But here's why we're going to start with it. We're going to start with it because of love. It's because each of you who are here today have a dream. You have a vision. You love your product. We could see the passion with the three of you who stood here. How much of passion and hunger there was. You love what you want to do and you want to go places. That means that you love your business. Because if you don't, then maybe it's time to simply close up. And if you love your business as much as I know you do, then you'll do everything to protect it, safeguard it, give it the best chance to succeed. So when I do compliance in my business, yes, I have to do it because we want to access funding, we want to access market, we want to apply for tenders, we want to submit our business plans, we want the funders to take a look at it, absolutely. But it comes because I want to give my business the best chance to succeed. It comes from the love and the peace of mind that when you go to sleep at night, you know tomorrow morning, whatever opportunity lands your way, you are ready for it. I can't tell you how many times I come across people who will contact me at 8 o'clock in the morning for a tax clearance certificate that they need by 4 o'clock in the afternoon because they want to drop it in the tender box. And it doesn't work that way. So if you love your business as much as you say you do, compliance is an expression that you are going to protect it, care for it, and give it the best chance to succeed. So that when opportunity knocks and you say, you know what, I want to be there, whether it's funding, whether it is market, whether it's a partnership, it doesn't matter what it is, you know you're already at that door. If you can just get to that door, you'll already eliminate a lot of the other people who can't. That's the good news. I can't tell you how many times people apply for funding or they try to apply for a contract, and sometimes you have to turn them away simply because they do not satisfy the requirements on a compliance level. That immediately eliminates them. So that's quite sad, and we see that happening quite a lot. So if you love your business, that's the first thing that you should take into account. The next thing in terms of compliance, and I'm just going to share with you an easy way to understand it, is that there are 3 key areas in your business that you need to look at. So one is things which concern your business itself. The other is in terms of your labor, the people that you employ. And the third one is in terms of your consumers. All of them apply, but not all of them apply equally, because it depends upon what you are trying to do. Okay? If we look at business compliance, those of you who spend time with the youngsters will know that it's fashionable to be lit these days, right? So that's why we want to be lit, which means it's about legal, industry, and tax, okay? And at this level, in terms of legal compliance, if you think about it, you know, right at the bottom we have your Companies Act, and that's taking care of the basic things with your CIPC. So a simple thing like making sure that every year you do the annual renewal and you complete the forms. It takes a few minutes, but it's so important because when you have to apply, that's the first thing they're going to ask for. Then, of course, you have BEE, and then you have also registration for supplier for databases, where at times, like for example, if you want to do any work in the public sector, you have to be registered on the CSD, okay? So that is just a simple introduction there. When it comes to the tax side, income tax would always be your starting point because that's going to be looking in terms of your business and whether any taxation is going to be payable. If you employ any staff, then you're going to have to register as an employer, and now you're going to have to deal with employees' tax. And if the business begins to do really well, then you're going to have to register for VAT. But again, not all of them apply. It really depends upon what you do and when you do it. But of course, income tax would always be your starting point for any business. And then, of course, you have industry compliance, which is often permits, licenses, accreditations that might be really specific to the industry that you're going into. So, for example, if you want to get your product into a retail store, they might require that maybe there's certain accreditation or there is a certain license that you have to have. And that's very much dependent upon the industry that you are participating in. And again, just understand these things can take time. So in certain industries, it's going to take you a few months just to go through that process of getting your license or the accreditation. And you have to allow enough time because on the compliance side, unfortunately, things do take time. So if you don't start early, you'll find that at the time when you actually need your documentation, and now you want to do it in a short space of time, it's simply not possible. Okay. Labor compliance, again, if you're going to employ staff, you have to make sure that you comply with our labor laws. So for example, a simple thing like occupational health and safety, that becomes your responsibility in respect of the staff who you have. You also have to take into account if your staff have to get injured on duty, then you have your development, and of course, if they are unemployed, you should have been already registered for UIF. But again, these are basic things, and it doesn't really take a lot of time to set it up. And once it is done initially, then it's just about making sure that each month the returns are filed, and the payments are made. Okay? And lastly, we have your consumer side of it, where any marketing and selling of products and services has to comply with the Consumer Protection Act. And that's really just to ensure that there are no false undertakings, or for example, you go and there is a product, and then you decide that you're not going to let a customer exchange it. And then that customer decides that now they are going to take you up. So again, you have to look at your industry and your product and your service. And of course, if you decide that you want to sell and you want to give terms to your customers, then you have to be aware of your National for Credit Act, which also has certain regulations if you are going to do that. Okay? And the most important thing here is that if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance, right? Because so often entrepreneurs say to me, no, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. Why must I pay for it? You pay for it because the cost of not doing it is simply too expensive that your business can't afford it. And this happens in two ways. The next time you miss an opportunity for a tender, or you missed the opportunity for a contract, look at the value of that and ask yourself, was it worth it? Or if you don't do it, and then you decide at a later stage, now I'm going to do it, because now my business has grown, I can afford it. We often forget that it comes at a steep cost. I sometimes meet entrepreneurs who want to do financial statements and tax returns after 5 years. What they forget is it's not just the cost of doing it at that stage. It's all the penalties and interest that SARS is going to levy. And sometimes just that tax bill that you're going to have to pay is going to wipe out your profit for the entire year. Because that is the cost of non-compliance that you still have to pay. So that's the other important reason to make sure that you're always up to date, that you're doing it each year, and to get the professional assistance if you need to. Okay. The next part that we're going to look at are financial statements. And again, the aim is not for you to become the accountant in your business, but you need to be in a position where you can at least have a decent conversation with anyone about the numbers in your business. And I'm sure all of you have heard about the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement. And for most entrepreneurs, it means nothing. So let's be honest, it means nothing, because you just go to the ATM and you check, okay, I've got 100 Rand, I'm okay, or I'm not, right? We often look at our bank account, and that's where we live out of. But again, this is about understanding that if you really want to have the good life, you got to be honest with yourself about how is the business doing. We got to get a clear picture. We have to have a good understanding of the operations, the performance, and our cash flow. And your financial statements and your management accounts allow you to start making informed choices about where do you go based upon your numbers. Now, I often meet entrepreneurs who operate their business on the way they feel. So they'll say to me, that's a good idea, or that sounds like a good opportunity, or I just feel it's going to work out. Have you ever had those moments, like where you just feel it, like you can just feel the money, or you can just feel that contract, except that it doesn't work out that way. Think about it. Think about how many times you felt it, and afterwards you were disappointed, or worse, it worked out, you got the contract, and then you ended up with no money. Or you didn't get paid, or you ran at a loss. So it's very important to understand, while our emotions can guide us, and your intuition is absolutely valuable, you want to always make sure that your numbers are added on top of that to guide your decision making. So that if you're feeling good, but my operations and my numbers are telling me, you are actually going down, then I need to do something about it. So it really helps to guide a lot of your decisions that you want to make in your business, so that you're not just acting based upon how I feel. You're also acting based upon what your numbers are telling you each month. Of course, once you got your numbers in place, it makes it easy to apply for funding opportunities. Almost all of the financial institutions that you apply to are always going to ask for the same information. So having it done, completed, and available just makes it so much more easier. It is also quite important that, again, entrepreneurs often say, but it's too expensive, I can't do it, I don't have the time. So in terms of the resources, the SME Toolkit, if you go onto the website, it is an invaluable resource where you'll get all the templates for free. You'll get an income statement, a balance sheet. If you want to do it yourself, you just download any of the templates, enter your figures, and it will work it out for you. And it is 100% free, and it's easy to use. Of course, you could also use an Excel sheet. You could also make use of accounting software. But the point is, at the end of the day, it has to get done. Right? Whichever way you use, find what works for you, but start doing it. At the end of it, though, just bear this in mind. Even if you complete the financial statements yourself, you can't just sign it off on your own and submit it to a funder. You would need to have an accountant who is going to sign it off. So for that purpose, I normally suggest that you do look at a professional accountant or even a chartered accountant, and you engage their services for that. Okay? This brings me to financial statements, and again, it's a very easy introduction. So the balance sheet only consists of three things, three very simple elements: assets, equity, and your liabilities. And really what we're trying to understand there at the end of the day is what is your net worth, They often say, if your balance sheet is strong, you can come out of any storm, okay? But if it's not, then the slightest breeze and you fall over. So a very simple example, which I have over there, where really what we are trying to say in this example is that you might have purchased, say, for example, a machine for 1.5, and that's being represented by the equity, which is your 500,000, and maybe you went and got a loan from the bank, which is for 1 million. And what entrepreneurs often overlook is that even though you've got that machine there, you don't yet own it, right? Because you still have to pay back on that loan of 1 million. And only when that is paid do you own the asset. So your balance sheet gives you a very quick reality check as to who really owns your business. Right? Are you owning it, or is the funder owning it, and what does it mean? So that when you apply for funding, a funder can be able to assess, can I fund this business, or are your debts simply way too high, and it is going to hold us back. The income statement, on the other hand, I often like to think of it as a soccer game. So whether you are a Liverpool supporter or a Man United, and if you have to follow them, you'll notice that there are so many games each season, and they play the games, and at the end of it, somebody holds up a trophy, and they are the winner. Your income statement is allowing you to play the game every month, and after 12 months, we work out who is the winner of the league, right? Have you actually made a profit or a loss? Has this been a winning year or a losing year for you? And if you haven't done so well, then it's time to actually go back and relook at it. And if you've done well, then you want to keep doing more of it. And if you do this as part of your management accounts, then you won't wait for 12 months. And then you say, Ish, I didn't make any money, but I worked so hard. Okay? It allows you every single month to actually see, am I winning this game or am I losing? And the quicker you do that, it then allows you to also make some changes. So that's what the income statement does in a very simplistic terms. Bear in mind, though, that you also have to pay tax, and that's also something you have to factor into your numbers. Okay. And the last one is the cash flow statement, which tries to capture all the cash flowing into the business and out of the business from investment, financing, and your operating activities. And that's a very simple way to actually work it out if you look at opening balance at the beginning of the month and closing balance at the end of the month. And then that's a simple example. So for a lot of businesses who are starting out, you will often want to watch the cash flow from your operating activities, because this is where you are trading, where now you are doing a lot of work to actually push out your product, but maybe you are waiting to still get paid. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they tend to often get stuck when it comes to the cash flow in terms of their operational activities. And again, that tells you that something needs to change, right? Either because there might be issues with your product or your service, or your customers are not paying you. Whatever the issue is, if you get to the 25th of every month, and every month you broke, you must say, clearly something is not working out here, because last month I was in the same place I was again. And you can already see that next month you're going to be in the same place again. So clearly something is not working, and you need to address that in terms of your cash flow. The thing about cash flow is that you can have the best business with the best people, the best opportunities, but if you don't have cash, it's like oxygen, you won't survive. So that's why cash flow has become so important, especially in this environment where a lot of funders will hear your fantastic stories, but then they want to look at how is the cash flow going to be able to assess, can we support your business or not? Okay. And I think, a key takeaway is that you have to ask yourself, do you want to be in control of your finances, or do you want it to control you? Right? It can be a wonderful servant, but a really harsh master. And that's a decision you get to make every single day of your life when you go out. Now, often entrepreneurs also say, I just don't have the time for this. It seems like it's too much of time, I'm too busy, I'm just trying to get the business. And while that is understandable, we have to also take into account that once you set this up, it runs like clockwork. So the initial time to set all of this up might feel like a lot, because you have to go and find the information, you have to begin to establish your processes, and that can be time-consuming initially. But after that, every month, it begins to run like clockwork, so that you don't get to the end of each month and say, okay, what happened? How did this happen to me? You already know it, and you already have a confidence about how the business is going to do. So in conclusion, I want to leave you with this thought that you could spend the rest of 2022 doing exactly what you did in 2021 and in 2020. And maybe you will do okay. But if you are serious about having the good life, and if you are serious about building a business that's going to go places, and if you are serious about taking your business to a new level, which is possible, then showing your business the love it deserves is something which should be non-negotiable. And taking care of the compliance is an investment in the future success of your business. When it comes to the financial side, your relationship with your finances speaks volumes. And even if you take baby steps starting right now, you will well be on the path to future success in your business. So thank you so much for your time and attention. If you wish to obtain a copy of the presentation, you can email me. And I wish all of you the very best for the year, so that I hope when I meet you in a year's time, you'll be telling me how this was the day that your relationship with your money changed. Thank you.
Let's give Yusuf another round of applause. And thank you so much for that. And I think just to note, so we could either send you his presentation, but also we're streaming the session live. So everything he was presenting, as he was presenting it, is live. You can go back immediately after we conclude the session and watch it today, later, a week later. So thank you so much, Yusuf, for that. I'd like to now call up on stage. And what we'll do is, for the questions that you have, please just continue to write questions on your notebooks, on your phones. capture them. We're going to have a group engagement with all the three